She doesn't even go here.
I'm bi, actually.
Excuse me. Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Hi, I'm Kurt Hummel, and I'll be auditioning for the role of kicker.
Hello! Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Luke. This is
Alicia.
And we are your hosts of Not So Straight Nerds. This is just our little podcast to talk about entertainment, movies, shows, basically any kind of media and the stories that we kind of consume. And just kind of talk about our thoughts, what we like, what we don't like, and kind of audience reaction to some things that happen, movie news and that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's some stuff we're both really into, and we have a lot of these conversations anyways. So we figure why not drag some random people on the internet along.
Yeah, force you to listen to us.
I am your host, Luke, like I was saying. Alicia, give me the rundown. Who are you?
I'm alive. I think that's important. I really only started getting into movies, like, big time, a couple years before COVID, I would say. But I always went to the movie theater, always went with my dad. That was, like, our thing. Sometimes my uncle joined, but we loved the movies. So I've seen a lot of movies, but haven't really dug deep until, like, a little bit before COVID. And then, obviously, COVID gave you a lot of time to do that. So here I am.
Nice.
Luke?
Hi guys. So my name's Luke. I got really into movies, say about 2 or 3 years ago was when I started really trying to increase the amount of movies I was watching and the types of movies. I was always super into nerdy content, whether that's Marvel, DC superhero content, Star Wars, video games, that whole sphere. Then in college, I got super into like horror. Animation really grew on me in a more appreciative manner. Eventually through that, I eventually met my friend Alicia in college. And we just have been watching movies of varying quality ever since.
Especially this year. We'll talk about that later.
But yeah, and then I've started tracking and ranking my opinions on movies, and so I'm really enjoying having a space to kind of put all of these thoughts out there, so I don't have to, and they're on camera now, so I don't have to just keep remembering how I feel about things, of all of the things I have opinions on.
It's recorded. It will haunt us.
It'll haunt us forever.
Yeah.
So let's
we'll look back and cry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna sob.
Yeah, that's what
This
we
intro?
look forward to. Yeah.
I'm gonna sob about this tonight in the shower.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. Something we are going to try and do towards the beginning of each episode is kind of have a vibe check, kind of check in, just kind of see how we're feeling. So
yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. A little hot. We just hung everything up. We're getting everything ready for the first time, so it's a little, stuffy, but it's okay. I'm ready to go. I'm excited to have like a recording of my venting of movies, and whether I regret those thoughts or not, we'll see later.
Yeah, I'm just glad that more people get to be the brunt of it.
Exactly.
So now,
more people get to listen to it.
Now you all get to know what it's like.
Yeah.
My turn.
Your turn.
Vibe check. I'm feeling good. I'm vibing.
Okay.
You've honestly done a lot of the grunt work to get all of this up, which is awesome. Super love the layout. It feels very cozy.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. Like I said, we have a lot of these conversations anyways, so I feel like having an audience is just an idea that more people can be in on that conversation. It's something we can kind of share some of the stuff that we love, and hopefully kind of get new perspectives from an audience. Is really what I'm kind of hoping we kind of pull from this. So super look forward to anyone that potentially has any thoughts, whether that's agreeing with us, disagreeing with us.
Hot takes.
Yeah,
Welcome to hot takes.
Gotta love a hot take.
It's okay if you disagree.
And we'll definitely have some hot takes, for
We
sure.
will. Yep. We'll help you out with
and
that.
we'll just have to deal with that being on the internet forever.
It is what it is. It's okay. We've had to suffer through the internet's thoughts for years, and we're gonna keep suffering. And so now you get
And
to
now
suffer
it's our
ours.
turn
Exactly.
to make the internet
We get
suffer.
to contribute to those suffering. So sorry in advance. It is what it is. Everyone has different opinions, and some people make podcasts about it, some people don't. So
Yeah,
you know,
some people
it's
make
okay.
anonymous Twitter accounts.
Listen, we don't have to talk about it, okay?
It's great.
So let's talk about some shows we watched, and then we are watching all of the above, and then same with movies. But we'll start with shows.
Yep. And this segment is called "What We Watching."
What we watching? It's so creative. I know. I love the creative title.
What you watching?
Hey. Anyways, so we thought we'd start with White Lotus, because, well, we all know why. After that, what was it, the 4th episode? The full moon episode. I think that was 5.
I think it's 5.
We all know why, because there's lots to talk about with that. So, what are your, what's the vibes after that episode? Like, did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed them?
So I will say, considering they were basically the entire last episode of this show was like, oh my gosh, tonight's the blue moon. Crazy things happen on a blue moon. Full moon. Yeah. But I think considering how much they were hyping it up, I think it's a little bit overhyped in its own universe. Yeah. It feels like they're building up to something big happening. Right. And then episode happens and it's not even one of the episodes where that one girl almost dies. Yeah.
It still feels like it was building. It certainly got somewhere with certain
stories. It certainly got weird.
For sure. There's 2 major scenes we're going to talk about for sure, and we all know what that is. But I do feel like with a few of the storylines, it started building more. I don't know. I kind of agree and I kind of disagree, because I do feel like there's now building blocks in the family storyline, in the 3 women storyline. It wasn't as dramatic as I thought it would be, but it's getting there.
But I think it is I think it's less of it's the full moon episode. Mm-hmm. Something crazy is going to happen. Mm-hmm. It feels like the full moon episode just aggressively moved up the pacing of a bunch of these things, which is, still good. I still really loved this episode. Absolutely. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the season. Mm-hmm. But it still doesn't have any kind of anything big explosive reveal. Right.
It didn't have I don't know. It didn't have one big thing that it was building up to. It had a lot of big things, and it sped up the pace, which I don't know. I kind of like better.
I think it's fine. It's not the end of the season anyways. Right, so
the finale is going to be the big bang.
Literally a lot of big bangs.
Yeah, a lot.
Because anyone who isn't caught up with this season at all. Also spoilers.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. We'll get better at that. We'll work on it.
I think it's worth saying now. Spoilers for basically every episode we're talking about. Yeah. The exception being we're not going to spoil a show to each other. So we'll talk about when we are not talking about our spoiler thoughts, and we will tell you when we're talking about our spoiler thoughts. And if we forget that, call us names.
Yeah. Bully us, and then we'll learn faster.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it built a lot of momentum. I think it had a pretty slow start this season. Yeah.
I don't think it was a bad start.
Not
but
a
I do
bad
think
start.
It was
but I think one plot line an episode was really getting good momentum. And I think this is the first episode where everything was moving forward at a really good pace.
I agree. I still think it's my favorite episode. Even if it was different than what I expected, I think it's my favorite so far.
I agree.
So.
So tell me.
What should we talk about first? Let's build up to the 2 big ones.
Okay. So maybe we break it down by plot line?
Yeah, maybe we can start with the 3 women.
Love those.
That's good with you.
I feel like these are
Mostly.
how you
2
have
out of
the
3.
devil and angel on your shoulder.
Yeah.
This is the holy trinity that lives in my head.
Yeah. One on each shoulder, one on the head. They're all looking at you.
One on each shoulder, one around the corner, shit talking you.
Yeah. That that
you're not
fits
there.
them perfectly. Yeah, once we're not there, that's when it'll happen.
Absolutely.
Let's look up their names because I'm gonna be so
Yes.
honest. I know one of them's Jacqueline and one of them's Lori, and I forget the other one, the like short straight bob lady. The
Kate, Lori, and Jacqueline. So Kate, Maury, and Jacqueline.
Kate. Okay. She seems like a Kate.
Because your name's not Kate. That I's important.
It's different. It's different. It's very different. If her name was Katie, that'd be different. I would think about your vibe and be like, that's off. Anyways, let's move on.
But I think these actresses are killing it.
Yeah.
This is probably my favorite. No, this is my favorite storyline this season.
I think so.
I think they're very, at least to me, they're very relatable characters. As someone who loves.
Ooh, explain that. What do you mean by that? Oh,
I
okay.
love
That's
gossip,
valid.
and I.
What do you mean by that?
And I am someone. I call myself a lover. Because I really I really enjoy people's presence. I like doing things with people. I like being around people.
And then you talk about them behind their
Well,
back.
I'm just also very acute of people's flaws.
Okay, that's a nice way of saying.
It's not my job to fix people. So, it's my job to coexist with people as a human being on this planet.
That's valid.
And so therefore, I just kind of, obviously if it's crazy, I step in and be like, hey, I don't know if this is what you meant to do whenever you said that. This is how you came off. I don't know if that's what you were intending. I'd step in if it was, extreme. But I relate to this idea where it's oh, this person, did you see how they were acting tonight?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've also been in situations, or maybe not situations, but groups of friends who, whenever someone leaves the room, they have to go do something, and then as soon as they leave, the conversation immediately switches to what just happened while that person was here.
Right.
That is so relatable to me because that's happened
Yeah.
a good amount of
It
times
happens
in
all the
college.
time.
And I'm sure that's a pretty fairly universal idea. But these women encapsulate that so well.
Yes.
I think they also encapsulate so perfectly. I've heard them talk in the end of the HBO episodes. They always have kind of a little breakdown with some of the actors, just kind of talking about their character in the episode and the season overall, talking about how they're women who just find themselves constantly competing with each other, whether they're not willing to accept that they see themselves as competing, but they just so
definitely are.
I think it's really creative the way they found all of these different relationships that they each have with each other. They have different grievances with each other. If one leaves, there's always something major for the others too to talk about.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what she did. Let's talk about what happened here.
Let's talk about that Bob.
But I want to talk about specifically what you said about the competition part, because I think this episode was super exploring that idea, especially with Jacqueline. Let's talk about what Miss Jacqueline did at the end of the episode. I'm not surprised that she did that. And if you haven't seen the episode and you want to know what happens,
Well, we've already passed spoiler territory.
yeah. Well, just to specify, she did sleep with that guy that she kept telling Lori every previous episode, you should get with him, you should flirt with him, you're the only single one. So she already cheated, and then she's also...
Because she is also married.
Yes. So not only did she cheat, but she also got with the person that she's been pushing for her friend to get with. And I've kind of sat with this for a while, and obviously it's bad. I wasn't thinking, oh, maybe it's good, maybe it's okay. No,
Hear her out.
it's definitely bad. No. But some people online that were saying, well, she took a while, Lori had forever to get with him. I'm like, that's not really the point. I think the point is that you shouldn't push your friend to get with someone and then get with them, especially if you're married and they're single.
For sure.
But I think it's totally in character for her. And I mean, there were cracks forming in their friendship and their group from the beginning, but that is a big one. That is a big one that is going to get revealed and is...
I'm really curious how it's going to get revealed.
Yes. I feel like it's gonna be him that does it, because I feel like he probably doesn't have loyalty to Lori, so like why would he care if she finds out? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
His lack of loyalty.
Wow. Great. Okay. I don't know. I think it's perfectly in character for her. Especially being the person in the spotlight, she always has to keep that. And so in any format, whether it's acting in that world, or just something simple like friendships, she has to be the center of attention. She can't even encourage her friend to get with a guy without getting with that guy.
Yeah, it's kind of like the friendship dynamic where it's like, I'll raise you up, but anything you can do, I can do, and I'm gonna like make sure that I know that. We'll see if it becomes a thing where it's like, I'm going to make sure you know that I'm above you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be a good friend and support you, but anything you can do, I can do better.
Yes.
Which feels like that's exactly what this situation.
Exactly. I don't think this situation is going to be one she rubs in her face by any means. I mean, she's going to find out.
I think not until it gets revealed, and then she's going to be like,
yes. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Like, she's going to be like the people on the internet saying, well, you had all this time and you didn't, so even though she has a husband. So, I don't know. I'm very interested for that reveal. You know they're going to leave the island, not friends anymore. So, or not island, but place, resort. Not friends anymore. So, it's just, I like the cracks forming. I kind of want something to form with Kate, too. I mean, I know the whole episode she was very stressed and like, let's leave.
And I was a little confused. Like, I can understand, like, the general idea, but it feels like she was pressing that really hard. Like, at least in the idea of, hey, I don't want these people to come back to the hotel with us. Right. To me, it felt a little weird. Like, I understand there was that argument with the one guy and his girlfriend, I think is what we're supposed to assume is who that was, right, yelling at him. Mm. But I don't think it was, like, anything super crazy that you wouldn't have expected when you were going out clubbing.
Yeah. Especially anything Lori did. Like, she kept freaking out what Lori was doing. I'm like, she's the one that's single, that's supposed to have fun and party.
Yeah, and then at the pool, it's kind of, like, I think it's a little whatever. Mm-hmm. They went what is it? Skinny dipping. Mm-hmm. And she was making some judgmental eyes about that while she's wearing her full set long sleeve pajamas.
Yes.
Love the energy.
Yeah.
But don't be a hater while you're doing it.
Well, and at that point, it's different when you're out and about, but when you're at the resort that you're staying at, just go back if you're not having fun. But, I mean, I understand that she doesn't want to feel left out. Like,
I also think it's an interesting idea that I think they do at least want to come off as caring for each other. Right. And I think to some capacity they do. There's that inherent, like, I enjoy being around you.
Yes.
Whether that's because they actually enjoy each other's company or because they've just spent so much time together and that's the norm.
Yeah.
But I think that in this episode, she's really pushing the idea of, you clearly don't know what's better for you. I don't know how to say that, so I'm just going to go along with it because I'm not confrontational. Because so much of her way that she actually lets out her disagreements with these women is behind their backs.
Exactly.
And so I think she doesn't know how to express that to their face. And so she's just really uncomfortable that entire time. Whether there is actually something to worry about or not, I think is maybe a little debatable. And I think probably a little besides the point. But
and I know, like, she's the one of the group that's going to church and, like, Christian.
I also wonder if that's supposed to be an element to it where it's kind of like a holier than
like
thou kind of thing.
Yes, I was going to say that is maybe that's her way of feeling better than the other two.
That's a good
point.
point.
And she's trying to control them in a way, and she's getting stressed that she's losing control.
That's a really fascinating point. The idea of, like, she has, like, the moral high ground. Lori has kind of, like, the fun high ground. And then Jocelyn has, like, the sexy high ground. I think that's a really interesting take on that episode, actually.
Yeah. Like, Jacqueline has the most power. Kate has the most, like, moral superiority. And then Lori has... I don't know what Lori has. I mean, she definitely is the most fun of the group.
In this episode.
Yes, that's true. But I think she might not... Maybe that's why she, like, cried in that... What's the first episode?
Yes, that was episode 1.
Maybe that's why she felt like that, is because she feels like she doesn't have any superiority over them.
No, I would say because she definitely doesn't feel as successful as the other ones.
Right. And I don't think she is, period, because they were talking about the fact that they don't think she got her promotion. And, like, that shouldn't matter in friendships, but it clearly matters in theirs, whether they want to admit that or not. So, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, this continues to be a really strong part of this show. And this whole dynamic is, I would say, one of the most interesting things I've watched this year, at least, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think we can go ahead on to one of the other topics. Let's go on to the family. The Ratliff family.
Gosh, and that'll lead us into one of the big moments of that night. But let's start with the mom, dad, and daughter part of the episode.
Yes. So, the daughter, let me make sure I remember her name. I have the IMDb list up so I can get everyone's names right. So, Piper. She dragged the whole family here for this thesis that she's writing about Buddhism. And then there's no thesis. So she's planning on staying here in Thailand. I don't know why I'm saying
Indonesia.
Thailand. Oh my gosh.
Are you the mom?
I
Want
know.
to stay in Taiwan?
That part was
You
so
wanna
funny.
live in Taiwan? That was so funny.
That was so funny, and that's so real.
And everyone on the internet's like, they're engraving your name in the Emmy as we speak. And honestly, that's fair.
There's
She better get a nomination
strong
for that.
acting in this show. Like it
I
has
agree.
season to season. I think. I'm trying to think if there's particularly a guy who's selling their performance. I think Sam Rockwell is certainly up there as like a cameo.
Oh, yeah.
I would not be surprised if he gets a good nomination for cameo this season.
I agree. And he should. That's the other big part we're going to talk about.
But we'll circle back
we'll
to that.
get there.
one.
Trust.
But I think the mom especially, with her reaction to that and just being in this place that's clearly very different from the culture she's used to,
Yes.
different religion.
Her family's all acting weird. Everything's weird and not normal. Her husband's acting normal. She's missing her lorazepam. Is that how to say it?
I think so.
Lorazepam?
Or if you're her, my lorazepam.
I'm going to have to drink myself to sleep. I mean, she's so funny.
I think it is really impressive. And let me look.
Give her medication. She deserves it. She has earned it.
For some reason, she's really low on this cast list. Parker Posey, who plays Victoria. I think this is a character that could so easily be a caricature of like this type of like Southern Belle mom with the drawl who's high and mighty, but thinks that she's great. But I think it's a very real look at that. Like, it's funny because when you're not in that situation, you can find the humor in it. But it's also very real. And
Like,
she's
she's
doing
so
really,
valid
she's
for
doing
being
a lot
stressed.
of work to make sure it's like just walking that fine line between a funny performance and a real performance.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
It feels very authentic. And I think other actors, which I'll talk about later in Mickey 17, that's one of my hot takes, does not do a caricature very well. It feels forced.
Because I think you
Unlike
can do
this.
like a caricature performance, and I think depending on the context of it, really depends on if that works or not.
That's very true.
In this context, I don't think it can last very long because of how long you're spending with these characters.
She's got to have a breaking moment.
I'm
For sure.
really interested to see how she develops because she almost walks in on
Her
husband
committing.
having
We all know.
and I just can't imagine how Southern drawl that reaction would have been.
I honestly don't know, and I think that this is a great part of her character. I don't know if she would have freaked out or if she would have just been like,
Well,
don't do that. You're being silly. Come to bed. Like if she would have been
I
like,
thought you were
you're
talking about
not
after
doing
the
that.
fact.
No. Like if she caught him in the moment with the gun to his head.
What are you doing, silly?
Yeah, I don't know if she would have had like a freak out moment or she would have been like, you're not doing that. Like almost like gaslighting both of them. Like this is not happening. Come
That
to
would have
bed.
been a really fascinating scene
You know?
to watch, actually.
And I would have liked it either way, and that's the cool part of her characters. I don't know which one she would have done. So
Which one she would have ate more?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
But then the dad is clearly going through machinations of his own failure to plan. The dad, Lucius Malfoy, Tim, played by Jason Isaacs.
Okay.
He is interesting. I feel like, considering how important his role is, I will say I think it's kind of the least interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think it's hard because at least the past 2 or 3 episodes, he's been very like down and like quiet, and that's hard because that doesn't give you a lot to work with as an actor. And I know he's a good actor. It's just you don't have a lot to work with.
And a lot of the people who's like having these conversations with, it's a phone call. So like you don't have another actor to bounce off of.
Right.
I think in those phone call scenes is where he does some of his best work.
I agree.
For
He's
sure.
doing the best he can, I would say.
I think it's just hard to stand out with these people who like
Have
nail
such
their
loud
roles and have
performances.
people to bounce it off of.
Yep. His wife and his son, the oldest son, I think have the strongest material to work with, and they do it pretty well, especially the mom. So I don't know. And I'm sure they'll give him something later on. I mean, something's obviously going to
Yeah, he is.
come of that.
He is the one with the gun.
He's got to go home, or he's got to like do something with a gun.
Well, that's the thing.
So-
He ain't going home.
Yeah, I don't know.
So we'll see.
He really did in the phone call. He said, "I'm not going to jail. I'd rather die."
Yeah,
So,
and you know, I don't want
We
to say
saw
he
him
didn't put
almost
his
do
money
that.
where his mouth is yet. but
yeah. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested. in
Either
what
way,
they come up
however
on that.
his plot this season ends, it's going to be, it's going to blow up in some way.
Yes.
Which is going to be
It's
very
gonna blow up the whole family too,
yes, for sure,
in one way
because
or another.
Saxon, played by Patrick
Is it like Arnold?
Schwarzenegger. Yeah,
Is it really
Schwarzenegger. Yeah, it's his son.
okay. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but that's small things.
Mm-hmm.
But he also works for him, so he is definitely out of a job. He just doesn't know that yet.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be crazy because clearly so much of his worth is tied into that and being successful. So
Yes. Yes.
we'll see what happens there. I think
And he's gonna be angry with his father for not telling him, even though he can't do anything about it. I don't know. Maybe he can. Maybe he's more like action than his dad.
we'll see.
don't
I
know.
mean, it's definitely like beyond the tipping point at this point.
Yeah. Like there's no way to go back. I mean, I don't know. They are rich, so.
But they're not anymore because their assets are frozen.
That's true. I don't know what will come of that, but I'm interested to see.
But this will lead us into to our first crazy scene of the episode, with Lockie, and Saxon.
You're so close to being as normal as Piper. You're so close, and then you just like your brother. So
Yeah, I think it's he has probably the most like subtle performance
yeah,
of this season, because he's really teetering between kind of which sibling he wants to kind of be like, which is I think a very normal thing for a kid his age. He's about to go to college, which is all about self-discovery.
right.
And then you have your older siblings, both of which who have graduated or are in college,
Right.
and Piper's still trying to figure out who she's trying to be. And I think that's probably honestly what's drawing him so much more towards Saxton,
Exactly. I
because
was
he's
just
so
about to say.
loud, so confident in himself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the like the kind of manosphere, like I'm better than you, so I get what I
Yeah.
want.
I work harder, so I deserve
And
it.
if you don't have confidence in yourself, that's why he's like, oh, I want to find that confidence.
Right.
And I just
I'm
have to
gonna go
follow
this
what he
direction.
says.
And I think he knows that his brother is extreme, which is why he was trying to be maybe more like the sister at some point, but she's not as confident in who she wants to be. That's the whole reason she's going on the trip, is because she doesn't know who she wants to be, or her purpose, I guess. And so I think that was the ultimate deciding factor. Well, my brother's more extreme, but he knows who he
Yeah,
is.
it's confidence. Because I think a
Yes.
lot of people, especially in like this kind of conversation where it's like masculinity versus toxic masculinity, and it's like, unfortunately, the people who are kind of horrible about it are the ones who are really loud about it, which is why that's the one that these people who kind of come in without an opinion on it are seeing
very drawn
them
to
and
it.
not the alternatives, or forming their own opinion, because it's a lot easier to follow the loudest voice than to kind of think through and sit within yourself and find out what actually is, or at least what it actually looks like for you. So I think that's also a very relevant plotline to the modern age.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. I think I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that conversation being had and the very odd relationship between both brothers. And that all encapsulated with a kiss this episode between the two brothers.
A peck and then a
And they went
longer
back for it.
kiss.
They did go back for it.
And I know the older brother was like, ugh, that was so weird. But then he's seen the next episode looking quite steamy, whether it's just with himself or if it's with the brother. He may even be with the girl, but I guarantee you if he's with the girl, he's thinking about his brother. So however it unfolds, he definitely is affected by it. Yeah. So.
And I really thought this episode, it would like kind of end with him taking drugs for the first time, clearly having that whole montage of being out of it, being lost in the city, but constantly being kind of brought back in directly by his brother. Right. And like they were always like that whole scene, they were always like leaning on each other. And I thought the big twist of this episode was going to be they wake up and they're in the same bed.
I'm okay that didn't happen though, because I do feel like that's kind of cheesy or like overdone, I guess.
That would be very cliche, I'll admit.
I mean,
but that is clearly what it feels like they're heading for.
That's the vibe.
So
yes, absolutely.
Either way, something has to reach ahead on this road, and we'll see what that is.
What happens with that? Family's gonna
that I
totally
think is the most
fractured.
Unhinged storyline.
Yeah, and shocker, people on the internet liked it. Shocker, it's an HBO show with incest. It's not even the first time it's been done.
Hey, if Game of
Thrones
won't
be
can
the
do
last. And House of Dragon. They've got 2 shows right there. Yeah.
Hey, it's the HBO brand at this point.
Is that the brand they want to go for?
That's the
it's
brand
the
they
one
have.
they're going with. Yeah, exactly. I guess it is the one they want.
Is it better to have an incestual brand or no brand? Who's to say?
Moving on.
Let's see, and then
the big conversation with Rick and.
Let's pause. We'll save that one for last.
Oh, okay.
Then there's the guard, the security guard, guy talk.
Do we need to talk about that?
I think we can briefly say that
it's the most boring one, for sure. And it's the whole. Everyone's in agreement. It's very frustrating how little confidence he has, and he's a security guard.
How did he get this job in the first place?
I know, and you have video clip of this guy that's taking the gun, and you just let him leave the bathroom. You don't even confront him, because I know you said he could lose his job if he doesn't have the gun on him, which is a good point. But also he's gonna lose his job anyways because he lost the gun. So,
it just further proves the fact that he needs to find another job.
Do something. Yes,
because if you're not able to confront him about the gun,
how are you gonna
get it back? And ultimately, how would you use the thing? It's like the scene from the trailer, The Amateur, pointing at my chest.
Yeah,
can't do what I do.
He can't.
Love you, Lawrence.
And it is weird though, because isn't he the first and only guard that actually went to tackle the robbers?
Well, no other ones were in the way, because he runs the gate, and he was the only one that they ran by. To be fair, they got through him the first time because he wasn't.
Yeah,
because he was lifting up for the bike.
He didn't know they were bad the first time. He knew they were bad, and he still went after them. But then we don't get that anymore. That's the only little confidence he's ever had.
Well, all he did was stop their car, and then they pistol whipped him.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't do much.
And then he was like, hey, Mook, I just tried to stop a robber. And then his boss comes up and is like, but did you stop them?
But did you stop them?
You're not paid to try. You're paid to stop them.
Exactly. Who cares if you don't do anything?
So he just feels very naive in his execution. And ultimately just bro, you're a cutie patootie. Get a job at the reception desk.
Yeah. You deserve better, and you just need to find your place, and security is not it.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of Mook, some people are saying that they get sinister vibes from her, she's not really, I don't know. I'm not for or against that, but they think she's too good to be true. And I think that's fair with White Lotus, except we have Belinda, and she's actually good. Maybe it's just that.
I think what it is it's that thing where it's because I've heard them talk about it. I don't know if you were there when I watched the the end interview with them, and it's the idea of like they've just been friends for so long, and she doesn't see him like this, and he wants her to see him like this.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the thing where, come on, you're silly. We can't date.
Right. I do think it could be that she's toying with him a little bit, but my question would be why? Like, why would she be doing that? Maybe she's like being like, you're so I don't know. It could be a thing where she's just not taking him seriously, or it could be a more sinister thing where she's actually like toying with him. But then why, you know?
I think it's more, and it also could be like a cultural difference, because she's actually from Thailand, isn't she?
I have no idea.
Because I think
I don't know.
someone said that. So she might just be acting in a way that, like, as an American audience, it feels a little weird. To be fair, we're perceiving it over subtitles as well.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
but I think that's also, like, inherently just, you know, someone's into you, you're not into them,
really into
but you
them
have
that
this
much.
relationship you have to maintain.
And he's nice. Like, it's
And
not
to be
like
fair,
he's
she's
being
not saying-
weird.
To be fair, she doesn't say no. She says, stop joking. Which also, maybe take that as a hint, King.
Yeah. She's definitely not, like, rejecting it. She's just not taking it seriously. Yeah. And so you can tell she's not really reciprocating it like he is.
On to Belinda, I think, who I'm so scared for.
Look, run away. Just go ahead and go back to the
Go back
other
to Maui.
resort. Yeah. You don't.
Stay away from Greg.
Yeah, your life is.
It's
life
not
is
worth
not
it,
worth
girl.
the training, okay?
Okay, maybe not
You
worth
got
the
it.
training, but it
But
might
the
be
guy.
worth the guy.
She said, dang, is my life worth this hot man? And the answer is maybe.
The answer is
Maybe.
certainly closer than one might think.
I don't know. But then her son's going to be here. I'm excited for Zion to show up.
It feels like he's coming
Excited.
so early, because like in the first clip, because he's the first scene in the season,
Yes.
and it's him being there being like, hey, I came here with my mom. My mom is great. Can't wait to see my mom. And then, ba, 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 ba.
Where's my mom? Where's my mom? She's out there somewhere. He seems very nice. I hope he's just
he's-
as normal as her. I'm sure he is.
And I think it has to be a misdirect that it's him in the first scene, because it's so obvious that they want us to think that she's going to be the one who dies.
Yeah.
And I think that just can't be the case, especially after they already killed the last person who returned from another season,
True.
last season with
Sorry,
Jennifer Coolidge, who killed that. Talk about going out on top.
No, for real.
I still see memes of that today.
Yep.
But so I think it's just inherently in my mind, there's no way she's not the one or one of the ones who dies at the end of this season.
Yeah. And I really hope she's not one of those, like, she gets killed before the season ends, because I feel like she deserves better than that. She's too much of a fan favorite.
Yeah,
to
I
be
think
treated
she
like
has
that.
to go off into the sunset with.
She would have to be the finale girl, and I think they're pushing that too much for it to actually be her. Or it could be multiple. Maybe that's the new twist. Maybe it's multiple. But
It could be. Because I was really thinking all last season when it started with, like, oh my gosh, there's bodies washing up on the shore. I was really thinking more of the guests would be dead.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the only guest that actually died was Jennifer.
Coolidge.
So if there are multiple deaths, I think that's going to be really interesting going forward, where, okay, cool, it's not just one. It could be
It's
anyone.
multiple. I still think it's interesting, the idea that it, what's his name? Tim might take out at least part of his family with him, if not all of his family with him. I don't know if I would be for or against that. It depends on how they do it.
Like
I'm
everything,
open
it
to the
depends on
idea.
how they do it.
Exactly.
I'm not convinced that he would take out his family with him, just because it doesn't seem like they've done anything to insinuate a reason for him to correlate his family with his struggle. I'm not saying that in real life that's what happens, but like plot-wise, a good scriptwriter, which clearly this show has, would build up the reason for him to go onto his family. And especially with this kind of show, who clearly can do an annoying family really well, it feels like they don't give him reason to find his family annoying.
Yeah. Unless
and
he,
God knows they could have.
well, unless he finds out about his sons, he may be like, I'll take you out with me.
Okay, guys, I'll see you all
You're
in the next
just
life.
as bad as me.
Oh my
You're
god.
just as corrupt.
Onto the last part, which is also a really good part of the season.
One of the best
is Chelsea
long monologues
and
ever. Oh
Rick.
yeah, we have to get to that first. Yeah.
Chelsea, I love this season.
Yes.
I think she's such a ball of energy. Her smile, I think, makes me smile.
She has such a unique smile, and I love that, and I hope she never changes it.
And she has such a sweet naivety to her relationship with Rick, who is clearly Cecil, the character he voices in Invincible. Cecil.
Yeah.
It's just like we gotta kill man.
I will say, someone said this episode they somehow were more connected to each other and had more chemistry than ever by being apart, and I kind of agree with that. Like, I see what they mean by that.
Yeah.
Because they were so like, I want to take care of him, and then he was so like, what conversation am I a part of? And like, you could tell it felt like Chelsea would have been there right there with me, like what's happening here.
It's like, man, I thought her conversations were weird.
Yeah.
And now here we are with Sam Rockwell talking
What?
about how he
A wonderful actor.
he sometimes likes
He's
to
an
be an
Asian
Asian
girl.
girl who gets
Asian girl in the
fornicated
world.
by men who look like him.
That was such a good monologue.
That is a crazy
So
monologue. That
it was
feels
so
like
weird.
That feels like in like weird theater where like people choose their own monologues to present,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you're just on this journey.
Mhm. Honestly, though, people should pick that as their monologue anytime they can, like in college, not in high school, obviously. I mean, I don't know, unless your high school is chill, but.
Hi, I'm auditioning for Matilda.
And here's my monologue by Sam Rockwell from White Lotus. Hope you enjoy and hope it matches the character I'm auditioning
But
for.
it just kept going, which was so great.
So good.
And it just kept expanding, which is like exactly what you want from that kind of monologue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just encapsulating. The writing on the show is just so good.
Yeah. And I know it didn't, I feel like in the moment, feel like, how did we get here? But afterwards, I'm like, I don't even care. That was such a good monologue, and that's so on brand with the vibes
And the
of the
dry
show.
delivery.
Yes.
And then just the reactions from
I don't care if we mention it again. I
Rick.
don't care. I loved it. Yeah, Rick. Yeah. Rick. Poor Rick for having to suffer through that conversation. But honestly, what an ally, because he didn't even, like, he may have judged on the inside, but he was just like, mm-hmm. Like, he listened. Like, what a good friend. He's like,
dress up.
okay. I mean, whatever you want, dude. Or girl, Asian girl. Whatever you want.
Anyways, can I get the bag?
My drink can be on his tab.
Because
I
we're going to be
deserve it.
drinking more
Yeah.
after this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be drinking
Never.
more.
This is the lesson, people. Never ask a person why they're not drinking alcohol.
Because this
conversation
monologue
will
is going to
happen.
come up. Exactly.
Yes.
Tale as old as
I
time.
think we should both memorize this monologue for down the line when we stop drinking, and then, then we're ready.
When you're the DD.
I think so. Yeah, when you're the DD. Why aren't you drinking tonight? Don't say you're the DD. Say you want to be an Asian girl. Yeah, I think that's good.
That monologue's gonna stay with me for a while.
Yes. That's it might be the highlight of the whole season.
So
I
far,
might
I'm
say
definitely
so far.
tempted to agree, which is so great for Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, good for him. And if you didn't know, a little fun factoid is he's married to Kate's actress, right?
Yes, I believe that one's Kate. Yes,
So
Kate.
Sam Rockwell is married to
Kate.
Kate's actress.
Yep.
And she was also the reporter in Iron Man 1 and had like a small part in Iron Man 2, I think, at least according to Google. I feel like I remember her,
I can
like,
vaguely
briefly.
see her on a screen
If
somewhere.
she was like, if she was on the TV in the background, and like I could totally see like Tony looking at her, rolling his eyes, like moving on, something small like that, or maybe she shows up. I don't know. I kind of remember. I need to rewatch that movie, but I kind of remember. But that's kind of cool. They've been in that movie together. I feel like they were in another project together too. But what a power couple.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, they're both doing really strong work,
Yeah,
which you love to see from a power couple.
I agree. Yeah, very fun.
So I think we'll finish off this talking about White Lotus with the ultimate question: who do you think is going to die at the end?
Who's gonna die? I don't think it's gonna be any of the women.
I think it would be it would have to take a really big turn for, I think, it to be the women. They kind of have the same vibe as, like, Audrey Plaza and, like, that whole group in the last season.
Like, they still live, but it's very, like, broken.
Yeah. I think if I had to put money towards it, I think the dad is clearly a really strong contender. Like I said, I think Belinda's out of it because there's no way they're prepping her up this much to die for her to stay alive.
I don't
or for
think
her to die. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be Chelsea. It could be, who's Gary's current girlfriend? Or
Chelsea.
Greg or whatever.
Oh, if it's
No,
Chelsea.
no, the other girl.
Oh, I actually don't even know if she's on this main
Chelsea's friend.
IMDb.
I don't remember her name. It might be her, but it needs to be someone else more major.
I feel, you know who I think it could be? What if it Guy Talk?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's him and the dad, like, and they're trying to get the gun back.
Yeah.
And then that blows up into something, or maybe it's like something where he's finally standing up, like kind of growing his big boy pants on to, like, I gotta be the man for this girl who doesn't know she's my girl yet.
Yeah.
And then dies.
Maybe. I'm gonna say it, and I'm so sorry if I'm right. Oh, I'm so sorry if I'm right, cause I think like 20% of me thinks it might be Rick. I don't know why.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was Rick.
But I don't, cause I'm still wondering. We haven't seen the owner lady's husband. We haven't seen him, and I'm wondering if that's for a reason.
In Bangkok.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if that's for a reason. If maybe like he's the one doing the shooting for some reason. Cause I mean, if he really did kill Rick's dad, like he's then a bad dude and has that capability.
Borderline uncool.
Really uncool. I don't know. I feel like something could come of that, but only like a smaller part of me thinks it could be Rick. But I don't know. I have this nagging feeling.
Now that I say it out loud, I actually really am leaning towards it being Guy Talk.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be sad about it.
And then especially if it's him, like, standing up and doing his job.
Yeah.
And then that explains why it's
Finally
like an
does
actual,
it
like,
and-
shootout.
Yeah.
So I think even if he might not be the one who necessarily dies, like, maybe he makes it out of that, but he's definitely involved in that shooting.
Yeah.
Which I think makes a lot of sense. And it's so subtle in the background, but still clearly a big part now of two storylines. I think that's actually a really strong theory.
Yeah. I think my top 3 are Guy Talk, Rick, and Tim. I feel like. And then honorable mention the girl whose name I don't know, Chelsea's friend that's dating Gary/Greg.
Yeah, I would agree with that list.
So
I think Guy Talk's the number one.
I really don't think it's going to be
suspect.
yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
I think that's all of our thoughts on that subject.
Daredevil?
Yeah, let's go into Daredevil. Another show that we are currently making our way through on a weekly basis is Daredevil Born Again. On Disney Plus. And it is...
It's not a binge. It's doing weekly, which is going to be something I would like to talk about.
Go ahead and...
Do you want to start off with that, I guess?
Yeah, go ahead. While I bring up the IMDb so I can make sure I'm pronouncing the names correctly.
I don't know. I didn't remember the fact, because I didn't watch that show when it first came out, so I didn't know it was, I mean, that makes sense since it came out on Netflix, that it was a binge model. That's very typical for them. But I didn't know that, and so, but it was a binge for me because it was all out by the time I watched it. And I really liked it. I do think that helped my experience with it. I think there are some shows that are made, like White Lotus, perfect weekly release.
Because there's always something to have a huge discussion about afterwards.
Yes. And I think that's one of my main problems. I think that's what I'm deciding is that Daredevil, in my opinion, needs to be a binge. And I'm very interested when every episode is out. It's also hard because it one of our problems is that we both feel like it feels kind of slow.
Yes.
But it's also split into 2 seasons, so that might also be a factor. But at least for the first season, I'm very interested to go back and binge it when it all comes out, because I want to know if that improves my experience.
Sure. I think...
But we can't do that right now, so we have to take it at face value, which is the weekly release.
Which is the way they ultimately decided. However, I heard that next week we're getting 2 episodes released.
Okay.
So we could possibly perceive that as them realizing that this was meant to be
Maybe.
not
I mean,
a weekly, once an episode show. And I do
Yeah.
think my most enjoyable experience was watching the first 2 episodes back to back.
I agree. So I'm interested to see if that's how we feel next week with the next 2.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it's literally just the amount that we consume at a time that makes it, that makes or breaks this.
I don't know. Like, I'm okay being patient and seeing if it has payoff, because I know I saw another tweet that said the storyline that they're doing, like I'm assuming from the comics, is slow. Like, it takes a while to develop, and I'm fine like being patient with that as long as it does have payoff. It needs to have payoff. It cannot be like it is right now and not have a good payoff.
Well, and speaking of the story from the comics, is that the actual Daredevil Born Again comics like run. My understanding is that that's what basically Daredevil season 3 was.
Okay.
So they pulled a lot of that towards that. Like, I think that's
Okay.
Daredevil versus Bullseye, him trying to like find purpose and stopped being Daredevil, became Daredevil again.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think it is repeating that.
That's fair.
Because I think one of my biggest, I don't even know if I'd go as far as to say problems, but something I kind of was expecting more of is just like action. Like, because you're moving
Yeah.
from Netflix.
And I do think I've seen that critique a fair amount. Like, out of all the critiques I've seen, that's the biggest one, I think. That one in the binge model or weekly release.
That you're going from this Netflix universe, which was forced from multiple different angles to be very self-contained and within its own kind of place. You can hint towards some of the bigger stuff within the current Marvel media, but you could
Right.
not include it.
Yeah.
So the big idea, I would think, is coming into the actual Marvel sandbox and being able to play with some more of the action figures is that, hey, now Daredevil can interact with anyone who's street-based. I know Spider-Man is a little bit of a hard topic because it's a shared Sony thing. So that is what it is. However, you're doing your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Disney Plus, so I don't understand why live action could be that crazy. And like Spider-Man shows up in the What If series a handful of times, so it's not like he can't show up temporarily in some media. I don't know if it's a live action thing.
It might be. I'll look into that.
But that's another interesting thing. What if it's just like Spider-Man, like what if it's just the Spider-Man costume and not necessarily the casting of Tom Holland? Like what if like
Okay.
Spider-Man is there and it's just like a brief thing and maybe they find a way to not even have him need to speak. I think that would be pretty visible about what they're doing, but it would be a way to, like, Kingpin is pushing this anti-vigilante agenda. He literally talks about this man dressed up as a spider.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, he's the only one of the 3 examples you've given, White Tiger, Daredevil, and Spider-Man, that we don't talk about. And you are also a Spider-Man villain. So, I don't know. It feels like, and I've heard that they're going to eventually kind of get into some more stuff, more characters. But it feels already like they were given the reins to a lot of stuff to work with, and then they were just like, how about this D-list character, White Tiger? Some people know about that.
And then we'll kill him off.
And then we'll kill him off after 2 episodes.
So.
So it just feels interesting that they weren't all in on this new idea of like Daredevil in the full MCU. But still it doesn't feel, I think, super similar to the Netflix show either. So I
Right.
think it really rides this like in-between thing where you can tell they're trying to break into something new, but ultimately I think they're really nervous to go full into something new and potentially
Yeah.
lose the vibe of the show. But then I think they're too worried of being too similar to the show.
They're riding the line too much and
Yeah.
then not doing anything. Like, if you're not going to have Karen and Foggy... 'cause that was
Spoilers.
the whole
Okay, we're
thing.
officially putting the spoilers up.
Well, we also said White Tiger died, and we said earlier that anything we talk about there's gonna be spoilers, so I think
Probably.
it's okay.
We'll put up another spoiler warning before we start actually getting.
Okay. So spoiler, obviously, of what I just said. Karen and Foggy aren't really in it, obviously, because Foggy dies.
He's dead. They killed one of the 3 pretty best friends.
And then Karen is gone in another state. And that's so interesting to me because fans campaigned so much for them to come back, and they did, and then they're basically not in it. Which I know Karen is supposed to be in the second season. I just saw a clip where they're filming a scene together for the second season.
But that's the thing. I also heard Foggy's supposed to be back in the second season.
Yeah,
Somehow. I don't know if that's flashbacks, but I think...
But I think the problem is they're not filling that space with anyone.
I agree. Like you have the
Bring back Frank as a regular. Everyone loves Frank.
what's her name? His assistant, Kirsten. Like you have Matt's assistant in the office.
Yeah.
She's just kind of there. She isn't filling up any kind of ensemble
And
space.
she's kind of interesting, but I feel like they're not really developing her character that much. So
They're not really doing anything with it.
Yeah, and
But
I
they
think that's
introduced
a
her.
shame. Yeah, and same with the love interest, the current love,
Yes,
the therapist.
Heather Glenn.
Yeah, she's not particularly interesting either. But again, that's because they're not giving her a lot to work with.
With her, I think it's really interesting. I think her most interesting thing is that she's Kingpin's marriage counselor
Yes.
and Daredevil's girlfriend, but she doesn't know how interesting that is. So the
Yeah.
show isn't super able to look at what that means for her because she isn't aware
Yeah.
of what that means for her.
Right. And even like Kingpin and Vanessa's storyline, even that doesn't feel like it's being talked about enough to keep it interesting.
Yeah, I will say this episode, we just finished episode 4. So White Tiger's dead, Bullseye's in jail, Kingpin's the mayor.
Frank is getting
Frank is angsty.
Matt to be Daredevil again, hopefully soon. And Muse is showing up more, so hopefully they do
Good.
something with him.
We've talked about it. I think Muse is the most interesting common thread that we've seen episode to
agree.
episode, and he is being downplayed so much, which I think is really
Yeah.
interesting. And another thing I had mentioned. Okay, so I'll move back a little bit. So the first 2 episodes dropped.
Mm-hmm.
The first episode is all about basically a lot of exposition to get us to where the show wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
It starts out with this long-run action sequence about Bullseye versus Daredevil, and Foggy ultimately ends up dying. That makes Daredevil want to stop being Daredevil.
Right.
And then throughout that whole break, he sees Kingpin go to power, and then the whole show basically is these 2 people who who are trying to put themselves in a place where they can't give into their darker sides.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still aggressively against each other regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I think it's interesting because I think that's the strongest episode I think I've seen.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, and I acknowledge that is not I think that's actually
Popular.
I think that's actually pretty much a hot take.
Okay.
I think it's fair enough to say that's a hot take.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of stuff happens. It moves very fast, which I'd give anyone who says that. But I think the show, I don't know. I don't think it would have been interesting to watch the show expand these things when you know what's going to happen with it. Like, oh my gosh, 3 episodes of Kingpin running for mayor? I wonder if he'll get it.
I'm glad they were just like,
I'm glad that they just made that 1 episode. Yeah. And I think they did the interesting scenes from what needed to be seen.
yeah.
And so I'm actually grateful that they made basically a whole episode of what could have been like 3 to 4 episodes and just took the actually interesting parts of it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it actually had action in it. I think Bullseye in season 3 of Daredevil is so great. Seeing him be the super respectable FBI person, slowly reveal that he was always a crazy person,
Yeah.
and then see him just completely delve into the identity of being this crazy psychopathic killer.
Yeah.
Like that was such a fascinating like arc to watch. And then he comes in this season wearing purple.
I thought it was blue.
No, it is so purple. I've seen it in the light because we've seen
It's a
pictures of that
choice.
costume for a while.
It's not a popular choice.
So bad. Like, just make him wear black. Why wouldn't you let the character who wears black and white in the
Because
comics
then
wear
you can't
black?
sell new toys.
Who is gonna buy that toy? What kid?
I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't surprise me that he has a bigger or a different costume. Even though it does disappoint me, but it does not surprise me.
But it's just like, and you can make it. It could have just been black. It didn't even have to be the comic book outfit. But
That's true. They could have done a different design and still sold that toy. Like Daredevil, he's had multiple red suits, but it's like a little bit different.
but Bullseye
That's true.
wears black. Like, point blank, period. If he's not wearing black, then you have to explain yourself, or it's weird.
I do think that was that's a fairly popular opinion from what I saw.
Not a hot take.
I mean, it's a minor critique, but
I mean, he's not there a lot, and he's not even in the costume
right.
outside of like that maybe 10-minute sequence, less than that.
Yeah. And it was pretty dark, so it's not like it was like obvious the whole
But he's
time.
still in the actual scene as a character. He's killing it. I love the way
Yes.
he throws things at people. I
Yes.
really love the part of the scene where he like throws the pool balls and they bounce off the wall. One hits Daredevil. One bounces off of like 7 things and then hits a girl who's just standing there and
Poor
Daredevil
girl.
catches her.
He didn't care. I mean, he like
Because he's just so psychopathic and
Yeah.
crazy, and he's just there to hurt people. He doesn't even care who.
yeah.
Which is so like,
I do think it's interesting though, like, because the first kill was Foggy,
yes.
and I do wonder if that was intentional, and then he just had his little like fun.
Well, he was clearly, because he knew Foggy was there. Because he
Right.
was making the person that he was on the phone with think that he was going after him.
Yeah.
So clearly Foggy and Karen
That was calculated.
were the ones he was aiming for.
Yes.
And then Daredevil showed up, and then he knew that it would torture him to see that he couldn't stop him from hurting other people.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, because I think in the comics, it's a pretty understandable idea that, like, they have this relationship, but I think it's so interesting to see Daredevil have his own, like, Joker or Green Goblin or just, like, crazy-ass man who's just hurting people because it hurts him.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm honestly surprised that they put him in jail so quickly, because I think that
Yeah.
that was such a strong choice in season 3, and to have that also be one of the characters that they bench in the first episode, I think is just a very hot choice.
They keep mentioning him though, so I do think they have plans of getting him out eventually. Especially, I mean, that whole line of he got life, like Matt just screaming that.
That was so
That's-
chills.
Yes, I mean, that was a great scene for the two of them. Of course, they were gonna do. They have such great like chemistry in their dynamic. It's so great. And then I don't know. They're definitely gonna bring him back. I think, or at least they're hinting at that, and I hope they do. I think they need that. They need something, and they might make it to where, who Kingpin was to Matt in the 3rd season might be who Bullseye is for this season. But they still have Muse, and so I don't know.
Interesting. My understanding of what Muse was supposed to be for this season was kind of like, the season was supposed to be like a 50-50 split between Matt's story and Fisk's story. And
Okay.
basically Muse was supposed to be an enemy to both of them.
Okay, and he still can be.
He absolutely still can be. I just think it's interesting that we're like halfway through it.
And he hasn't.
We've seen that he's, I guess, killed some people. And
Right.
he's draining their blood for something.
But he's not a problem to either one of them yet, as far as we've seen.
But I would be surprised if he's using that in his paintings, as one would possibly think for a crazy painter guy who kills people and drains their blood. What else would he be draining the blood for if not for paint? But every painting we've seen him do so far has been white. So, like,
Yeah.
it's crazy if that's what they're going for, because literally the White Panther mural this episode, which
Unless
looks
he's
beautiful.
building towards blood murals. He might not
Maybe.
have done it yet.
I would
And
agree,
then
but I can't remember.
he's definitely building. We saw him building them in this last episode, but he just hasn't put them on the street yet, as far as we've seen.
I'm interested to see what that work is. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope it's stunning. He has some awesome work, but
Mm-hmm.
I also love Muse's actor. For those who
Mm-hmm.
don't know, it's that weird
Well, probably. I guess
Oh,
it
it is.
hasn't been. I mean, we haven't.
We haven't seen it in the
him,
show,
but we know
but
it's
we've
gonna
seen it
be him.
released.
Like, come on. We have seen it released.
Or maybe it was like scooper stuff, but
I mean, it's one of the.
He's Muse. He's Muse.
Yeah,
But it's Hunter Hold on.
it's the guy from Wednesday.
Yes, he is from
guy
Wednesday,
who
and I
turns into,
loved
like,
him
the
from Wednesday.
monster.
Hunter Doohan.
Okay.
Ugh, I think he's cute as a button.
They might. I mean, next episode might focus on him, or one
mean,
of the next two has to focus on him.
it's-
We've got to get the ball rolling somehow.
Considering he was like the last scene we see, I'd be
Right. That's why it gives me the
similar to
impression.
how Punisher was, like the Punisher logo was last thing last
Yes,
episode,
okay,
and then we
yeah.
saw him this episode.
I hope Muse has more or bigger moments than that one, though. And I hope Frank has bigger moments too.
Frank has to come back.
Because didn't
We've
we see
seen
him
a-
in his suit?
We see him in this. We've seen set pictures released of him and Daredevil in their suit. So
Which might be season 2. I don't know.
I don't think
I
so.
don't-
I think that came out long before.
Okay.
'Cause that's been out for a while.
I hope it's season 1.
But onto some more of, I think I can say our shared hot take of this season is I think they do Hector Ayala's White Tiger
So dirty.
pretty dirty, but not in the way that they're clearly intending to.
Right.
Because they talk about how Daredevil has been gone for a while, and then there's new vigilantes coming up, like the White Tiger, who kind of fills that space. And they show the same clip of him fighting in a gas station, or a
Right.
convenience store. And it's like you can't even do different shots or even a different
No.
angle of the same fight.
Yeah.
And then
Our complaint is that he didn't have an actual like fight scene in the suit with the amulet.
yes, that's
our
like
main part
cinematic
of
and
the
like
hot take.
worth bringing this character into the story.
Yeah.
Like
And
essentially,
he's an interesting character. We get a whole scene of him as a person. Let's see him in at least one fight scene
Mm-hmm.
actually saving people, which we spend the whole episode talking about. He saves people. He saves people.
like you couldn't
And
even
then we
do
don't
like
get to see it
because
like,
there's
in
a
person.
screenwriting term where it's show don't tell,
Right.
and I understand it's a court scene, like a court show, at least half of it.
It's fine to tell, not show, but then you have to show at some point.
Well, but if you're going to tell, you have to make that writing really strong.
yeah.
And you have to like have it be delivered by someone who can keep your energy, like who can keep your attention in like a storytelling kind of manner. Which I think Charlie Cox is great, but in a court scene where you're just listing a bunch of examples,
Yeah. I think it needed to pay off by seeing that, because otherwise it just feels empty.
and then it leads into how the White Tiger actually dies, which is he has his magic amulet on, which gives him the powers of the White Tiger. So he runs as fast as a white tiger. And then as
so many
he's
kinds
running through the streets of New York with his cat night vision abilities, he is shot point blank by this person on the street while
Dirty cop.
he's mid-run, mind you, with his cat-like speed and reflexes. This person he didn't see with his cat night vision shoots him point blank in the head.
Didn't hear, didn't see.
And that is just crazy. Because we never got to see him be in action. And they kill him in the middle. It's like almost something out of The Boys. Where it's like making fun of this character that like these people who know at least who we're supposed to be comparing it to.
Right.
It's like building up to be this big deal, this big moment. And then they're killed. And it's like, oh wow. That's kind of pathetic. Like it almost...
Yeah. It's so he deserved better.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
And there's ways you could have killed him that would have been so much more respectful, especially
Yeah.
with that actor. Let me make sure I know his name because he does a great job as Hector Ayala.
Well, of course they did it because as like one of the factors that's gonna push Matt to become Daredevil again.
Sure, but
But I don't like that it seemed like they used him just for that rather than building him as a character and then that happening and that connecting plot points.
because when you do it with someone who has their own lore and their whole story, and honestly, with that suit, could be a really badass character. Like it's just disrespectful to the people who were looking forward to seeing this character be something.
Right.
And like I said, they could have had him helping out someone and actually, like, see him in action and save someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, while he's distracted with that, he gets shot from behind.
Right.
From someone who isn't standing directly in front of him.
Yeah. He had no reason to be distracted.
It's just
But he
so,
was, I
so
guess.
crazy to me. Let me make sure.
And R.I.P. to the actor. He did a good
Yes,
job.
he did so good.
I wish his character was treated better, but he did really well with what he had. And I'm sad that I'm not going to see him again.
Camar de los Reyes. Rest in peace, King. You
King.
played such a heart of gold and sympathetic role, and it sticks with so many people, which is such a testament to him.
Yeah. Because he's the more minor of the two main iterations of White Tiger. Correct?
So I actually
his
read this
daughter.
up because
Okay.
I was always under the impression that Ava Ayala was the person who becomes the White Tiger next. Turns
Okay.
out I'm just incredibly biased because I grew up, and some people will find this embarrassing, watching Disney's Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, which
Okay.
had, which is basically, that iteration is Spider-Man in an MCU-esque universe, but it's him with all of, like, the Avengers as a team, and it's about him joining S.H.I.E.L.D. to try and be a better superhero.
Right.
And they give him a team of these other young superheroes that ultimately end up going to his high school.
Right.
And that cast is Luke Cage, a young Luke Cage, young Iron Fist,
Okay.
a young Nova,
Okay.
and a young Ava Ayala, White Tiger.
Okay.
So that's where I know a lot of the White Tiger stuff from that show.
Right.
So apparently Ava Ayala is the 5th iteration of the White Tiger.
Okay.
And before her, the 4th iteration, which is Hector's niece,
Okay.
is Angel.
Heard. Del Torres?
Del Torres, yes. So, which we do see her in the show.
Right.
And I saw someone point out that Daredevil picks up the suit with the amulet, and then she goes in for that really long hug. So potentially she stole the amulet.
Yeah, maybe took
Which
it.
honestly
Okay.
would be really cool. I think
do
she
hope
really
she's
eats
one
that.
of the last things. Maybe they don't touch on her at all this season, but if they do, I hope she's after they touch on Muse and Punisher.
Yeah.
more.
I think it's really interesting that they could have kept her on the sidelines. They made a really big point to be like, hey, this character has this big scene where she's reacting to the death of her uncle.
Yeah.
And then she goes into the hug with the person who has the power of the White Tiger amulet. And then she leaves. So I feel like, considering you pointed her out and you didn't leave her as just some, like, vague concept where it's like, oh yeah, there's a picture of someone who could potentially get recast if we want to bring her into another season. Like, you almost have, like, okay, you casted her, you brought her in to do acting.
Yeah.
So now, if you don't make that actress the White Tiger,
That's messed up.
you're kind of
Because
the problem
people had
here.
the argument before this past episode that she was like a Cassie Lang in Endgame, and I think that was valid, but now you can't say
But
that.
now you can't.
She had one scene, like one bigger scene with multiple
And it was a
lines.
pretty
Like,
good
it's-
scene.
Yeah,
I
and
think-
she's doing a good job.
but
There's no
she's-
reason to.
My thing is that she's still just so young.
She is so young. That's why I don't. I honestly hope they don't touch on her being the White Tiger until next season.
But another thing I learned actually
We'll
in
see.
reading about the White Tiger and all of the different versions is that Ava Ayala, while in my show or in the Ultimate Spider-Man show, she is the daughter of Hector Ayala. Apparently, in most iterations, she's Hector's younger sister.
Okay.
So he could potentially still have an Ava Ayala sister somewhere
I'm sure.
who could
Yeah.
take the mantle and be an older White Tiger for the time being.
Yeah.
So I've also heard a theory that they could be trying to make Angel Del Torres as the White Tiger and be kind of a Robin-esque character to Daredevil, or at least in that sphere. I think
Oh.
that's a little weird. It would certainly be something bold and something I don't think has been done before.
Yeah.
I kind of don't like it, but like I said, it would have
We'll
to.
have to
It would
see.
depend on how they do it, But
'Cause
I
he's
don't
not
think
even
I
ready-
trust the show to do it.
Not right now, because he's not even ready to be Daredevil, much less
Yes,
have a
this
Robin.
would be something that happens down the line.
It again, season 2. It needs to. I mean, at least.
So
So
it's been really interesting to because that's how I view the White Tiger. I think the court scene of him is done pretty well, and they have some great scenes from it. Charlie Cox, my lord, can
doing great.
really sell a courtroom scene.
yes.
And then, like I said, Hector is heartbreaking in that scene,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just unhesitating a man who does what he thinks is right, time and time again. And he's really good at making you connect to Hector, but we've never really been able to see him make you want to root for the White Tiger.
Right.
And then he's dead, and it's more so of a thing to Matt and Daredevil than it is to us, which I think is a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was sad and emotional, but it almost didn't feel like we were ready for that. And I know maybe that was the point, is that it was supposed to catch you off guard, but still, it should have a purpose. And I feel like it didn't.
Well, because it's
have a
essentially
at
like
least not a purpose I like.
it's a purpose where they
Or
use his
understood.
character only to move forward Matt's character, which is
Yeah.
what they call fridging, which is basically a comic book term where they kill the main protagonist's like girlfriend or love interest, and then they find their head in the fridge, and
Yeah.
essentially cutting off like, okay, this person had no drive or like interesting story to tell outside of this person's life. And then I think especially when you see that kind of blend into like movie stuff, I think that's even more jarring. And then especially in the modern day, I think kind of unacceptable.
You just,
Like especially in a
can't.
TV
You
show.
just
Like
can't. It's
sometimes
very
movies have
frustrating.
runtimes, things have to get cut. And like
but TV shows,
but with a
I mean,
TV show you
and-
have so
and
much time to spend with
honestly,
these characters.
all you needed was one
One
fight
scene.
Just one fight scene.
Ugh.
It would 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
And it's
We
just
just
been
needed
so
5 more
interesting to see
minutes.
people so into just the courtroom scenes, which and they are great.
I love it.
And like
yeah.
they're great in the original show,
Yeah.
but the original show was still able to maintain a balance between that and being an action thriller.
Yeah, I
which
think
the
they
show
need-
just
they
doesn't have a lot of
desperately
balance.
needed that action scene, and like you said, that would have been perfect. A perfect ending to that episode. Seeing him fight as White Tiger, and that's when he's killed in the middle of being distracted by helping these people.
Yeah, have him
That
die
would've been so
helping in the
heartbreaking.
costume that he's literally fought through the law system to prove.
Yes.
Like, we know why he's doing it now,
Yeah.
and we get to see him in action, not just words, but actions, which are clearly so important to this character. And then he just gets cut off before you get to see that, and I think that's
Gosh, that would have been so
it.
good.
Just feels gross, like gross and a missed opportunity that would have
It's
disappointing.
disappointing.
Ultimately made his death feel even more loss because we see not only what an amazing character he is, but what he could have added to the show.
Yeah.
Because you introduce this vigilante character to kind of fill in the space of us not seeing Daredevil, but then he never vigilantes, and so it just is a little mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
What was also interesting with that whole White Tiger storyline is that apparently that is from the original 18 episode part of this series that got completely
Revamped.
vamped.
Kinda.
Marvel basically decided that they completely restructured it. So they had an original idea of what this season was going to be. These first 2 episodes were a big part of that.
Yeah.
And then they were like, nope, we got to start all over. But apparently they didn't start all over because I think you can tell even throughout parts of episode 1 that like this clearly I think was multiple episodes and then combined into one. And then this I think really reads as a show that doesn't have Daredevil in the costume for most of it, which is what
Yeah.
I heard was a big, at least complaint as to why they completely restructured what the show originally was.
I don't know. I think overall the show's not bad. It's solid. It's just a little slow. It needs to get moving. It's had a couple disappointing moments in how it handled things. I agree that so far that the rating is on par with season 2. I feel like that makes sense to me.
I would
Would you put it a
personally,
little lower?
I would put it a noticeable notch lower than season 2.
A noticeable notch.
I think
Dang.
the quality, like, I don't think there's anything that the show is improving upon from the first, like, iteration of this show. Like, from Daredevil seasons 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Like, the court scenes, they're good. They're not what they were in the original show. The ensemble isn't what it was in the original show. I think Charlie Cox is as great as he's been. But I think they're putting him so much on a bench again for a more quick-paced reason than they gave in the 3rd season of Daredevil.
Okay.
Like, we were able to, like, fully understand and see that whole reason of, like, yep, he just keeps, like, almost dying. I've watched 2 seasons of this, and I understand why he just wants to lay in bed and tell orphan children that life sucks and you're gonna end up blind and bleeding on a bed surrounded by nuns.
Dang.
But, and I was saying this also, I feel like these episodes, unlike the original show, are not something that someone could just, like, catch someone else watching and be invested in seeing it to the end of at least that episode. Like, we've watched this around some of our friends, and they could not really be bothered to tune in to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Which I think is a
General
problem,
audiences.
especially if you have a weekly release like this. I think it's going to be really interesting to see with the 2nd season, which is currently filming, by the way, if they maybe consider going into going back to a binge. Or what I think is most likely is they'll probably follow what Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man did
Like
earlier
2
this
and
year.
3 episodes a week.
Yeah.
I would have liked that better.
Which honestly, like I said, we're getting 2 episodes this next week, so
So we'll see if that
clearly
helps.
they're already considering that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's been planned for a while. I'm sure that takes some planning, but yeah. It doesn't, I mean, not that it had to be months in advance. I don't really know exactly how it all works, but
I feel like we haven't talked a lot about Kingpin. I think he's
there's not
kind of
that
off doing
much
his
to
own
say.
thing.
Yeah, there's not that much to say. It's not bad. It's not particularly interesting. He's definitely losing it and slowly losing the reins of control and peace, as we see last episode.
Well, I really like what I think the strongest part of the show is showing the comparison between Matt and Fisk, and that they're trying to live the legitimate version of their lives, where they're trying to do what they've always tried to do, but through legal and calm and safe, normal means.
Right.
And you're seeing them basically waiting for an example to relapse into their old habits. And it's been really interesting to see how they deal with that. And then even down to the fact that, hey, in their pursuit of normalcy, they find themselves literally going to the same woman to try and keep that agenda going.
Right.
Which I think is also a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
You have new ensemble characters around them. Matt with his new lawyer team and the private detective that he uses, and then Fisk with his agenda lady, who I love, and the younger douchey kid who's talking to BB, like that kid, that guy.
He's partying with BB and spilling all of
Partying
Kingpin's
with BB,
secrets.
doing some drugs.
If he lives at the end of the season, I would be shocked. Because the second, like, Kingpin snaps, like, he's going to kill that guy.
I feel like he's probably going to be a scapegoat at some point.
Yeah.
Or Fisk is just going to kill him for some reason.
He might just brutally kill him. Maybe that's where we get our mature rating from.
Maybe. I will say, I don't think the show is nearly as dark as the other.
We haven't seen that yet. But, I mean, as long as, like, I don't know what the parameters are for rating it. Maybe as long as there's one scene in the whole show that's mature, maybe that's what requires the mature rating.
It's certainly interesting.
I don't think we've seen mature so far. We've seen
Closest
an
we've
arm
seen
break.
is a mask get shot in the head, and that arm break was pretty graphic.
That arm break was pretty graphic. Yeah. I mean, maybe Bullseye falling to the ground.
Oh, I don't even know if I'd say that because we
It
didn't even
wasn't
see him
very-
land.
Yeah, it wasn't very gory though. Well, we saw him land because we see Karen's reaction to that.
Oh, but it's from a huge distance though.
Yeah, like he's in the background of it. We see Karen, and then in the background we see Bullseye. And plus, he didn't die, and so it's not like his head like flattened or anything. You know, not super gory.
Did not pancake.
So.
He
was
he
more
lands
shocking
in like
than gory.
lands in like a like into like a puddle bullseye shape, like pancake style.
Dang. But I don't know. Also, they mentioned last episode there was another incident on the docks or something like that. You know, like where the
The gang
drivers were
leaders,
killed.
yes.
Yeah, they said there was another incident with that. And I wonder if that's Vanessa, or maybe I'm starting to wonder maybe that's where Muse comes in. Maybe he's killing people and getting up.
Maybe because he's clearly.
I don't know if that would make sense, but I just had that thought.
They are subtly building into something that could be a really good way to include why Muse is specifically going after Kingpin.
Yeah.
I think
I don't know.
I think we did get to a point like where Vanessa sent his assistant to go make peace, and then Fisk
Right.
was very actively like, let's not do that again. So I do think we are still. I think it could also just be the empire that Fisk built, Vanessa perfected, is crumbling apart with them without them actively being a part of that.
Yeah.
I think if that is the case, it's weird that Vanessa isn't more involved in those conversations.
Yeah.
But
I feel like we could use some more of Kingpin and Vanessa.
I agree. And maybe less choir singing "We Built This City."
It was driving everyone crazy as much as it was driving Kingpin crazy though. Very.
It was
valid,
really
the
fun.
crash
No,
out
whenever
there.
he walked into the second place and they started singing that in
That was
Latvia,
hilarious.
I broke out laughing. But they also kept that going for too long with the children.
A little too long. Mm-hmm.
Like
I agree with that.
and then, but it was
Like, we
so
got
funny
the point.
seeing
We're
him
like, okay.
get himself out of there.
Yeah.
That was a really funny part of that episode.
That's fine.
So I also heard rumors that there's going to be another character coming soon. I don't remember if they said it was a name drop or an actual appearance. The two things that we know of is that Kamala Khan's dad uses Matt as a lawyer.
Right. I keep forgetting. that he's
We
gonna
saw
be
that
in
in the
it.
trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And then supposedly it was released that Kate Bishop's stepdad from
Right.
the Hawkeye
Mhm.
series
Mhm.
is also supposed to be in the season 1 somewhere.
Okay.
So with that in mind, possibly saying Kate Bishop, who I think honestly could blend into the show really well.
She could actually. She would be a nice little cameo there, like a Frank 5-minute scene. Kind
Actually,
of
I
thing.
think it's really interesting that she's kind of an interesting blend between like the background of Kingpin but the heroics of Daredevil, because she comes from a rich family.
Yeah.
And actually she already fought Kingpin, so actually that's even more that her and Daredevil would have in common.
Yep.
So I would actually be really interested to see how
That'd be a
she would
cool
interact if
dynamic,
she
actually.
came in.
I'm
but then,
sure we would. I'm so sure we would know if she was in it though. So I don't think she's in it. But
Sure.
she might be a name drop. maybe.
oh, for sure.
That's not out of the realm of possibility.
I was talking about how funny it would be to just like see the Swordmaster, who is her stepdad, his comic book identity, who hence all the swords in that show,
Yeah.
be like, hey, I love my wife. She's in prison
Hey.
right now. We're dealing. My daughter is a Avenger. I think he's such a fun personality that I would just love to see Matt, this super hardened Matt, have to deal with someone with that kind of energy.
Yeah.
And then Miss Marvel also, I think, has some potential.
She could be fun.
She's very fun. I'm interested to see how fangirl she would be over a non-Avenger superhero. And see how all, like, that would be a really good insight to how well known and what all is known about Daredevil, because if anyone would know it, it would be her.
Right. Right.
So that might be a really good way to kind of show how Daredevil is viewed even just outside of New York and Hell's Kitchen. Like, oh, have I heard of you? Or, oh my gosh, you're the guy that fights rich people. who don't do their
Yeah.
taxes or something like that.
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting possibilities there.
Yeah.
So overall, I think the show is overall fine. I think it started out really strong, and then I think episode 3 was a little hard for me to
I
kind
actually
of get
really
behind.
liked episode 3 until the very end.
I think with how it ends, it makes a lot of it seem like, so this could have been any case. And it didn't need to be about the White Tiger for it to do this exact same thing to Daredevil.
Yeah.
So with
It
that all
was
in
very
mind, it
close
makes
to
me
being good.
feel some sort of way about it. But I really want this show to get back and get into a groove that's comparable to the Netflix show.
I'm
Either
rooting
that or
for
I
the
really
next 2 episodes.
either that or I really want it to find a way to kind of be its own thing.
Yeah. In a way that's
so-
good.
Yes. Yes.
In a way that's
Reach
better than
that.
it is now.
So I'm very hopeful. I have some notes, but I think there are very few things I want to not be good.
We can circle.
And we will keep you updated on
has
how we
time.
feel about this.
Yeah.
This whole section, the what we watching, it won't be
won't be
nearly
a-
as long as this usually
No,
because
no.
you caught us mid seasons.
Yeah. So it won't be this long every week, but we had a lot to catch up on, a lot to talk about. So
Yeah,
we're
and
probably gonna talk about
and
movies
we've had
the
a lot
next
of opinions
time.
on these. So
Yeah.
typically our what we watch in section will not be this long, as
Much
we will be
shorter.
watching it typically right alongside you, or typically if we have something to talk about like for a full season,
Yeah.
we'll do a whole little thing about it, similar
That'll
to kind
be
of
its
how
own
these were
video.
this time.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to us yap.
Yeah, for an hour and a half. Thank you. Thank you.
We typically will also go into kind of what we're going to be watching in the next week. Obviously, you
Yeah.
can count on us watching the weekly episode of White Lotus and the 2 upcoming episodes of
Yes.
Daredevil Born Again.
The next big movie next week is Snow White, so we'll definitely talk about that.
Yep.
We already have lots of thoughts, but
And we'll break those down in another episode.
yeah, not this episode. Another time.
And then also a movie that I'm very grateful we get a chance to watch is I believe it's called The Day the World Blew Up, a Looney Tunes
the
story.
Looney Tunes. Yeah, it's actually coming to our theater.
I thought we weren't going to be able to see it, but it actually is coming to our town. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited to get to see that and share my thoughts on that. But we will talk more about that on another episode.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, thank you guys so much for listening to us. We are learning as we go.
Yeah, let us know
So-
your thoughts and opinions if you liked something, if you didn't like something. What your opinions are on the shows we talked about. So, and what you want to hear more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you're watching.
Yeah, what are you watching?
I'd
What
love-
should we be watching that you're watching?
Yeah.
What are we
What are
missing
we
out
doing
on?
wrong?
I know, like Severance.
Severance
That's
is a big
thing.
one that
We're
I
gonna
want us
catch
to
up
watch.
on that eventually.
Um,
We already know about that. I'm sorry, we're behind.
and then I need to watch. I need to watch the latest season of Squid Game because I'm a
You're
loser.
you're very
And it's all-
behind on
it's-
that.
Oh, I know. I need
It's
to watch
okay.
that. I
It'll happen
have the
eventually.
weekend, so maybe I'll find a time to
Yes,
get
spring
binging.
break. Yeah.
But we're gonna go ahead and call it off there. Keep an eye out for our next video. Can't wait to continue some of these conversations on some of the other things we've watched this year, what we're looking forward to watching, and just having more fun. So
Yeah.
that being said, thank you guys for watching. I've been Luke. This is
Alicia, and this is Not So,
Not So
Straight
Straight
Nerds.
Nerds.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
You guys take care.
Bye bye.